Hello, my friend. Welcome to your sleep story. My name is Stephen Dalton. I'm an Irish storyteller, and it's my great privilege to be the voice that you listen to as you go to sleep tonight. Tonight we meet a woman who needs a break from the monotony of life, a break from things she has gone through. When one day, in a rainforest, she meets a kindly lady who hands her a book called The Bed of Safety, and this book takes the woman on a life-changing journey. Continue listening to see how she changes and the amazing journey she has, always moving closer to the bed of safety. Okay, let's do the relaxation session now, which will take a few minutes before tonight's sleep story. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support of the bed beneath you, or the floor, or whatever you lie upon tonight. And beneath what you lie upon, feel a deeper support. The support of the earth, our home, our constant support. And as you become aware of that support, see if you can sink into this moment a little more now. Just let go. A little more now. 9. You are safe. Allow my voice to be an anchor of safety tonight. To be a friend, to be a gentle guide, a guide that only ever brings you to safe places, to warm and cozy places, to places that enable and support your sleep. Trust that my voice is a friend tonight. 8. Feel into your body now. Notice where you might still be holding tonight. Notice where you may have pain or tingling or tension. Notice anything. Maybe you feel something in your feet or in your lower legs or your thighs or your belly, your chest, shoulders, arms, hands. Or maybe you're like me and and you hold tension in your face. Just see if you can soften a little now. This is a time for kindness to yourself and to your body. Seven. The day is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. But right now, all you have is this moment. Your thoughts can't change what has gone before. Your thoughts can't change what will come tomorrow. Your brain needs rest now. So, as thoughts come and go now, don't fight them. Don't chase them away. See them for what they are. Thoughts. Then just watch them go, like leaves floating away on a moonlit river, or clouds passing through a starlit sky. Six. This is your moment. This is your time. You have earned this moment of kindness to yourself. You deserve to have peace in your life. We all do. So, as you become aware of that fact, as you come to the understanding that we all deserve peace, see if you can settle into this moment a little more now, letting your body know that it's really time for rest. Five. Peace lives within you. It is a constant friend, waiting to be found, waiting to be felt. Where does it live within you? Maybe it's in your heart. Maybe it's in your head. It's up to you to find it. But I promise you it's there. Four. Perhaps allow a little gratitude now. Gratitude for the simple things for your body, for the shelter you have tonight, for the ones you love and who love you, for the beauty and wonder of this world, of this planet, that you can find when you look for it. Three, begin to engage with your imagination now. Begin to see a woman in a rainforest, far away from all that you know, and begin to feel the feeling of curiosity, of wonder, of those lovely feelings that we can feel when we go away from what we know. 2. Checking in with your body one more time now. Finding the places you are holding still, and allowing yourself to give in, to allow the tension to ease away. Your body has worked hard for you today. It's time to give it rest. And 1. Completely letting go now, as I tell you tonight's sleep story. She reaches the beach in the soft light of late afternoon, the kind that flattens shadows and makes the world feel steady. The sand is cool under her feet. She slips off her shoes and carries them by their straps, walking slowly along the shoreline as the tide draws patient lines at the edge of the land. She has imagined this place many times, pictured the curve of the bay, the low dunes, the distant outline of a small white house. Now that she is here, there is a quiet recognition in her body. This is the place the book led her to. This is where she was meant to arrive. The book rests in her bag, its weight familiar after years of travel. The cover is plain, the title stamped in simple lettering, The Bed of Safety. She was given the book on a humid afternoon in a dense forest, thousands of miles from here. She had been sitting on a fallen tree, exhausted from a journey she had not planned, and a life that had become too heavy to carry in the usual way. an elderly woman approached along the narrow path, moving with the ease of someone who knew the forest well. She stopped in front of her, studied her face for a moment, and then placed the book in her hands. "You will follow it from the first page to the last," the woman said. "You will not skip ahead. Each place prepares you for the next." That evening, in a small guest house at the edge of the forest, she opened the book for the first time. The paper was thick and slightly rough between her fingers. The first page contained no introduction, no explanation, only instructions. Page 1. Travel north to the town of Brno. Stay 3 nights. On the second morning, walk to the central market at opening time. Buy a loaf of dark bread and a small jar of honey from the oldest vendor in the square. Sit on the bench beside the fountain and eat slowly. Notice who sits beside you. Speak if spoken to. Write down the name you are given. She had followed those instructions exactly. In Brno, she met a woman named Marta, who pressed a folded map into her hand before leaving the bench. The map led her to a coastal village in Croatia. There, the book directed her to rent a room above a bakery and wake before dawn each day for a week. She watched fishermen return with their catch. She learned the names of the tides. She wrote them down as instructed. Now, sitting on the driftwood log, with the sea stretching wide before her, she opens the book again. The pages fall easily to the final section, worn from the number of times she has checked her progress without reading ahead. The next instruction waits. It reads, "Final entry before arrival. Walk the length of the western beach until you reach the break in the dunes, marked by 3 weathered posts. turn inland. Follow the narrow path through the grass for 200 steps. You will see a white house with a blue door. Knock once. When the door opens, give your name. You will be shown to a room at the back of the house. Inside that room is the bed prepared for you. Lie down fully clothed. Rest your hands on your stomach. Remain there until your breathing slows and your shoulders release their weight. You will have arrived at the bed of safety, and you may sleep. She closes the book and holds it against her chest for a moment, feeling the steady beat of her heart beneath it. The path is just ahead, beyond the curve of the dunes. The tide continues its slow rhythm behind her. And just as she's about to stand, she decides to stay on the driftwood for a while longer, because the book never told her to rush. She sits with the book resting against her knees and lets her thoughts return to the day she left Croatia, all that time ago. At the beginning of this great journey the book has taken her on. The next entry had been clear about both destination and pace. It said, westward to the Atlantic. Travel by train along the coast to Split. From Split, continue north by rail through Slovenia and into northern Italy. Change trains in Milan. Do not rush between platforms. Continue to Paris. Stay one night near the Gare de Lyon. The following morning, take the early train to the western coast. Choose a small town where the ocean is visible from the station. Remain there for 12 nights. During this stay, let the sound of the tide become familiar. Walk to the water each morning. stand facing the horizon for 5 minutes. Keep your hands at your sides. Return by the same route. In the evenings, eat warm food and sit indoors. Allow your body to learn the difference between movement and arrival. She had followed the route exactly. The train from Split hugged the coastline for long stretches, the Adriatic flashing between gaps in the rock. In Slovenia, the landscape softened into green fields and red-roofed villages. She watched without trying to capture anything, letting each view pass. In Milan, she stood on the platform with her bag at her feet and waited for the rush of passengers to thin before boarding the train to Paris. The waiting felt like part of the instruction. She spent that single night in Paris in a modest hotel near the station, the kind with narrow hallways and a small lift that groaned as it rose. She slept deeply and woke before her alarm. At dawn, she boarded the westbound train, and by late morning, she stepped onto a quiet platform in La Rochelle. The Atlantic air, cool and salted, from the station, she could see a thin strip of water between rows of pale stone buildings. She walked toward it with the steady awareness that she would remain here for 12 nights. No more, no less. The days in La Rochelle were simple and structured. Each morning, she walked the same route to the harbour wall and stood facing the open water. Fishing boats moved in and out between the towers at the port entrance. Gulls circled and settled. The tide revealed dark bands of seaweed along the stones. She did not analyze what she saw. She stood, breathed, and returned along the same streets, passing the same blue shutters, the same grocer arranging crates of oranges outside his door. She had the time for this journey because before she ever opened the book, she had stepped away from the work that once filled her days. She rented out her apartment. She sold what she did not need. She kept one suitcase, the book, and the notebook the entries had told her to buy. The decision had not been dramatic. It had been administrative. Forms completed, keys handed over, a forwarding address arranged. What remained was time, unstructured, unfamiliar, and at first unsettling. The book gave that time shape. She never knew it was coming, but it was welcome now that it had arrived in her life, for its instructions were giving her purpose. By the 9th day in La Rochelle, she noticed that her shoulders lowered as soon as she reached the harbor wall. By the 12th night, she slept with the window open to the sound of halyards tapping against masts, a hollow rhythmic knocking that no longer woke her. On her final morning in La Rochelle, she wakes before the church bells and dresses without turning on the light. The room is familiar now. The chair by the window, the narrow wardrobe, the small sink with separate taps for hot and cold. She closes her suitcase and checks the desk one last time. Notebook, pen, the book itself. Outside, the harbor is just beginning to stir. She walks her usual route to the water, stands for the 5 minutes the book asked of her, and then returns by the same streets, noticing how easily her feet find each turn. Back in the room, she eats a piece of bread with butter, washes the plate, and leaves the key on the desk as instructed by the owner. The next page in the book has already told her what comes after. Entry: crossing to Ireland. Travel north to the port of Roscoff. Purchase a foot passenger ticket on the ferry to Cork. Choose a sailing that arrives in daylight. Remain on deck for the final hour as the coastline comes into view. Keep your hands on the railing. Let the air move across your face. Notice the shift in the color of the water. Upon arrival, take the train to Cork City. Stay 3 nights. Walk each morning along the River Lee. Cross one bridge and return by another. Listen to the sound of traffic moving over water. In the evenings, sit indoors where there is lamplight. Write 1 page in your notebook, describing something that remained steady that day. On the 3rd day, continue by train to a coastal town in County Clare. Choose a place where the Atlantic is open and uninterrupted. Remain there for 14 nights. She follows the route without altering it. The train to Roscoff passes through flat farmland and small stations where only 1 or 2 people board. At the port, she stands in line with other foot passengers, cyclists, a family with 2 children, a man carrying a single rucksack. The ferry is larger than she expected. Once aboard, she finds a seat inside, but remembers the instruction and returns to the deck for the final hour of the crossing. As the Irish coastline appears, it does so gradually. A grey-green line. then the suggestion of fields, then the clear shape of houses scattered along the hills. The air feels different, cooler, carrying the scent of salt and vegetation together. She keeps her hands on the railing and watches without trying to name what she feels. The boat moves steadily toward the harbor. In Cork, she stays in a small hotel on a quiet street lined with red brick buildings. Each morning she walks along the River Lee, crossing one bridge and returning by another as directed. The sound of buses passing overhead becomes familiar. The river moves with a calm, brown-green flow, carrying leaves and the occasional floating branch. In the evenings, she sits under a shaded lamp in the hotel lounge and writes one page in her notebook. She does not search for profound thoughts. She records what held its shape, the weight of the pen in her hand, the warmth of the soup she ordered, the way the rain tapped evenly against the window. On the third morning, she boards the train west. The landscape opens into wide fields, edged with stone walls. Sheep stand in small groups, unmoving as the train passes. By afternoon, she reaches the town the book has indicated in County Clare, a place where the Atlantic stretches, unbroken, to the horizon. She walks from the station toward the sound of the sea, aware that she will remain here for 14 nights, long enough for the rhythm of the waves to become part of her sleep. She settles into Doolin in County Clare in a way that feels gradual rather than deliberate. The guest house has a rhythm. Breakfast at a long table, boots blind along the wall to dry. The soft thud of doors closing against the wind. Outside, the road curves toward the Atlantic, and beyond it, the land opens wide, held together by stone walls that look as though they have always been there and have no intention of leaving. On the 5th day, after a morning walk to the cliffs and an afternoon spent watching weather move across the fields, she sits at the small desk in her room and writes for longer than she has at any point on the journey. Journal, County Clare. Today felt like a full day, in the way days did when I was a child. Contained, understandable, with a beginning I noticed and an ending I could accept. I walked to the cliffs early. The wind was strong enough that I had to lean slightly into it, which made me aware of my body in a simple, practical way. The path was muddy, my boots heavy, the grass flattened in long lines. When I reached the viewing point, I stayed well back. The ocean below moved in slow, deliberate swells. It was awe-inspiring. It made me feel like I had a place on this planet, that I mattered, no matter how small I was against the ocean out there. And I saw my fellow humans taking in the views, and I saw how each one of them matters too. On the way back, I passed a farmer moving cattle between fields. He lifted a hand in greeting, without breaking stride. That small exchange felt sufficient. Recognition without expectation. I realized how long it has been since I've had interactions that did not require me to perform a version of myself. After a morning at the cliffs of Moher, in the afternoon, I took the boat to the Aran Islands. The sea was calmer than I expected. I sat outside and let the spray touch my face. On the island, I walked between stone walls that have no mortar holding them together, only balance and time. kept thinking about that. How something can hold without force if it is placed carefully enough. I sat on a flat rock facing the Atlantic for nearly an hour. No urgency. No need to translate the moment into something useful. The sound of the water, the movement of the grass, the weight of my hands resting in my lap. These were enough to occupy the space where worry used to live. There are still moments when the past presses in. A phrase I remember, a room I left, the look on someone's face when I said I was going. But here, those memories arrive without the same force. They pass through, like weather crossing the fields. I do not have to chase them or hold them in place. This evening, I sat by the fire in the guest house while the owner's mother knitted. The needles clicked in a steady rhythm. No one asked me what I do for a living. No one asked why I am here alone. We spoke about the wind and whether it would turn overnight. It was enough. I am beginning to understand that safety might feel like this. Ordinary rooms, predictable sounds, the ability to sit without bracing for interruption. Nothing dramatic, nothing to prove. In the days that follow, she moves easily through the routines she has established. Morning walks toward the cliffs. Tea at the same table by the window. Evenings near the fire. Listening to conversations that rise and fall without requiring her participation. She learns the path to the harbor without thinking about it. She learns which floorboard near her bed creaks and steps over it in the dark. One afternoon, the weather clears completely and the Atlantic stretches out under a pale blue sky. She walks to the edge of the fields and stands with her hands in her coat pockets, watching the long line where water meets air. There is nothing she needs to decide, nothing she needs to repair. The past remains part of her, but it no longer fills the entire frame. On her last night in County Clare, she leaves the window slightly open. The sound of the sea carries across the fields, steady and unhurried. She lies down fully clothed on top of the quilt, just for a moment, listening. Her shoulders lower into the mattress. The room holds its shape around her. She closes her eyes and lets the night continue. On her final morning in County Clare, she wakes before the light has fully arrived. The room is quiet, except for the distant sound of the sea moving across the shore. She dresses, closes her suitcase, and sits at the small desk one last time. The notebook lies where she left it. Beside it, the book. She opens it without hesitation. Her hands steady now, in a way they were not when the journey began. The next entry is longer than most, written in the same clear, practical tone that has guided her from place to place. Entry: New York City, 5 nights. Travel by plane to New York. Choose a window seat if available. Watch the land recede and the cloud cover form. Rest during the flight. Upon arrival, take a yellow taxi from the airport into Manhattan. Stay in a hotel where you can hear the city through the window. Each morning, walk to a park. Sit on a bench for 15 minutes. Keep your hands resting on your thighs. Let the movement around you continue without needing to follow it. Notice the sound of footsteps, distant sirens, voices layered over one another. On one afternoon, enter a large museum. Walk slowly through 3 rooms. Do not read every plaque. Stop when something holds your attention. Remain there until your breathing steadies. On your final evening, stand on a corner and wait for the light to change. Cross the street with the crowd. Feel the shared movement. Return to your room. Sleep. The flight is long but uneventful. She watches the wing tilt above a blanket of cloud and feels the subtle shift of crossing an ocean. When the plane descends, the city appears in grids and rivers, a scale entirely different from the open fields of County Clare. In the taxi, she watches buildings rise and close around the streets. The sound of horns, engines, and voices forms a continuous backdrop. Her hotel room is small, with a window that looks onto another building's brick wall. On the first morning, she walks to Central Park, following the flow of commuters and dog walkers. She sits on a bench, facing a wide path, and rests her hands on her thighs as instructed. People pass in running shoes, business clothes, heavy coats. No one looks at her for long. The movement continues, whether she watches it or not. On the 3rd day, she enters a museum and moves through the galleries at an unhurried pace. In one room, she She stops in front of a painting of an ordinary interior. A table, a window, a chair placed slightly askew. She stands there until her breathing slows and the noise of the museum recedes into a distant hum. That evening, in her room, she writes, Journal, New York. The city does not ask me to explain myself. It absorbs me into its movement. I am one person among millions crossing streets, waiting for lights, standing in line for coffee. There is relief in that scale. Sat in the park this morning and watched a man teach a child how to ride a bicycle. He ran beside her, one hand on the seat, then let go. She wobbled, corrected, kept going. He clapped once quietly, as if not to startle her. I realized I have been running beside my past in the same way, afraid to let go of what steadied me, even when it no longer fits. The sounds here are constant, yet my body is learning to rest inside them. Sirens pass, conversations rise and fall. None of it requires my response. I can sit, I can watch, I can stand when the light changes and move with everyone else. On the fifth morning, she closes the curtains, packs her suitcase, and opens the book again. The next pages contain a series of shorter entries, destinations that carry her southward, each one building on what she has learned. A week in a small town in Virginia, where she learns the pace of front porches and evening light. 10 days in New Orleans, where she walks along the Mississippi at dawn and listens to music drifting from open doorways. Quiet stay on the Gulf Coast, where the horizon flattens and the air grows warm and heavy with salt. She follows each instruction without embellishment. She rents rooms with windows that open. She walks in the mornings. She eats warm food in the evenings. She learns the names of streets and rivers, and the particular sound of wind moving through palm leaves. With each place, the urgency that once defined her life loses another layer of its hold. Nothing is forced. The changes occur the way the tides shift the shoreline, gradually, persistently, without announcement. At last, the book directs her farther south to a Caribbean island whose name she reads once and does not need to repeat. She travels by plane over turquoise water. From the airport, a short drive brings her to a stretch of beach where the sand is pale and fine, the sea moving in long, even lines toward the shore. Now she sits with the book resting against her knees, the same book that first met her in that forest some time ago. The air is warm. The tide moves with a steady rhythm. Behind her, palms shift lightly in the breeze. She has followed every page, every stay, every crossing. The journey did not erase her past. It placed distance around it. It gave her rooms where she could sleep, roads she could walk without fear, mornings that began without dread. The woman who sits on this beach carries all of that with her. The steadiness learned in Brno, the wide horizon of Clare, the shared movement of New York, the warmth of southern shores. Somewhere beyond the curve of the beach stands the place the final pages describe. She does not rise just yet. She lets the sound of the water continue. Lets the air rest on her skin and holds the quiet knowledge that she has arrived at the last chapter of a journey she was once too tired to begin. She waits until the light begins to soften before she stands. The path inland is narrow and sandy, bordered by low grasses that bend with the breeze. The book's final pages had been simple about this part. Walk until you see the small house, set slightly back from the beach. Knock once. Give your name. She follows the path at an even pace. Her suitcase rolling quietly behind her. The house appears just as described. White walls, a shaded veranda, one open window, moving gently in the wind. An older man answers the door. He does not seem surprised to see her. "You've come a long way," he says, not as a question. She gives her name. He nods once and steps aside. Inside, the house is cool and plain. No grand foyer, no dramatic view framed for effect. He leads her down a short hallway to a small room at the back. There is a single bed against the far wall, made with clean white sheets and a light cotton blanket folded neatly at the end. A wooden chair, small table with a glass of water, a window left slightly open so the sound of the sea can enter without effort. "This is the room," he says. "Take your time." When he leaves, she sets her suitcase down and stands for a moment in the center of the space. The bed is not extraordinary. It is not carved or ornate. It does not glow or announce itself. It is steady. The mattress gives slightly under her hand when she presses it. The sheets are cool and smooth. She sits on the edge and feels her weight settle evenly. She removes her shoes and lies down on top of the blanket first, staring at the ceiling. The fan turns slowly above her. Through the open window, the tide moves in a rhythm she has heard in many forms before. In Clare, in France, along the Gulf Coast, and now here. She draws the blanket over herself and rests her hands on her stomach, just as the earliest pages of the book once instructed her to do in another room, in another country. Her body knows this position now. It recognizes the sequence. Unpack, wash, lie down, breathe. The journey has rehearsed this moment for her in guest houses and hotels, in rooms overlooking courtyards and brick walls and open fields. Nothing about this bed of safety is magical. It is the familiarity that makes it safe. Her breathing lengthens without effort. The muscles along her shoulders release. She feels the accumulation of months, the trains, the ferries, the mornings on benches, the cliffs, the museum rooms, the slow repetition of streets walked twice a day. All of it has led to this ordinary bed in a quiet house near the sea. And she understands as her eyes grow heavy that the safety she sought was never stored inside a particular mattress or hidden in a remote location. It was built step by step, city by city, through routines she followed, even when she did not yet believe in them. It was shaped by her willingness to remain in places long enough for her body to settle. The bed is simply where she finally recognizes what she has already made. Outside, the tide continues its patient rhythm. Inside, her breathing matches it. Sleep comes without resistance, deep and unbroken. And in that sleep, there is no search, no rehearsal, no bracing. Only the quiet knowledge that she has arrived, not just at a place, but at herself.